Welcome to the channel Reveal Penny USA. Every so often, history hides a fortune in plain sight, and today's mystery begins with a tiny 1-cent coin that millions of people would barely notice. Imagine reaching into an old jar, sorting through a pile of forgotten pennies, and suddenly seeing the date 1970 with a small d beneath it. At first, it seems ordinary, just another Lincoln penny from decades ago. But what if one unusual example could attract extraordinary attention from collectors? Some sensational rare coin stories have attached a claimed value as high as $15 million to an exceptional 1970 Lincoln penny, and while that dramatic figure should never be treated as the normal value of every coin, the possibility of a rare variety, remarkable error, or extraordinary condition is exactly what makes this little penny so fascinating. So stay with me until the very end, because after we uncover the secrets behind the 1970 Lincoln penny, two more mysterious Lincoln cents are waiting in this journey, and their stories become even more surprising, but I'm not revealing their values yet. The 1970 Lincoln penny was struck at the Denver Mint during a period when the Lincoln cent was one of the most familiar coins in everyday American life. People used pennies constantly, children saved them in jars, stores handed them back as change, and millions of these small coins moved from one pocket to another without anyone imagining that decades later collectors would study their smallest details. That is the first great lesson of rare coin hunting: a coin does not have to look spectacular to deserve a second look. Sometimes the most important clue is hidden in the date, the mint mark, the lettering, the strike, or a tiny feature that most people would never notice. The D on the 1970 penny tells us that the coin was produced in Denver, and for collectors, mint marks are more than simple letters. They help tell the story of where a coin came from and can be an important part of identifying different varieties. Now imagine holding a 1970 penny in your hand. Lincoln's familiar portrait faces right on the front, the word Liberty sits beside him, In God We Trust appears above, and the date with its small d mint mark waits beneath the design. On the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial creates the familiar image seen on millions of cents from that era. To the average person, there may seem to be nothing mysterious here. But collectors do not simply glance at a coin, they investigate it. They look for unusual doubling, die cracks, off-center strikes, clipped planchets, unusual surface characteristics, and other signs that something unexpected happened during production. And that is where an ordinary penny can suddenly become part of a much bigger story. A genuine mint error can occur when something unusual happens during the complicated process of creating a coin. The blank planchet must be prepared correctly, the dies must strike it properly, and the machinery must operate as intended. When something goes wrong, the result can sometimes be dramatic. Imagine a penny that was struck slightly off-center, leaving part of the design shifted toward one side. Or imagine a coin with a noticeable die crack creating a raised line across the surface. What about unusual doubling in lettering or design details that appears to have come from the manufacturing process? These kinds of characteristics can make collectors stop immediately. But here is the important warning: not every strange-looking coin is a valuable error. A penny can be damaged after leaving the mint, scratched, bent, exposed to chemicals, crushed by machinery, or altered by someone attempting to create an unusual appearance. That is why real coin collecting requires patience. The question is not simply, does this look different? The question is, why does it look different? And finding the answer can make all the difference. This is also why the claimed $15 million figure should be approached with excitement and caution. A dramatic headline does not mean that every 1970 Lincoln penny is worth millions. Ordinary examples can be common, especially when heavily circulated. Extraordinary value would require something truly exceptional, such as a major authenticated rarity, an important error, a recognized variety, remarkable condition, or another characteristic that serious collectors genuinely desire. That distinction matters, because the real thrill is not believing every penny is a fortune, it is learning enough to recognize when one might actually deserve closer examination. Imagine a family cleaning out an old house. They discover a dusty metal box in a cabinet, and inside are hundreds of pennies collected decades ago. Most people would probably dump them into a jar or take them to the bank. But one curious person begins sorting. Date after date passes by. Then comes 1970. Another 1970. Then a 1970D that looks slightly different. The person places it under a magnifying glass. The letters seem unusually sharp. The surface has an interesting appearance. There may be a strange mark near the design. Suddenly, the room becomes quiet. Is it damage? Is it an error? Is it something important? That moment of uncertainty is where every great coin hunt begins. The person does not know whether they have found a fortune, but they know enough to stop. And sometimes, stopping is the most valuable decision of all. If you ever find a 1970D Lincoln penny that appears unusual, resist the temptation to clean it. Do not polish it, scrub it, or use chemicals to make it shine. Cleaning can damage the original surface and may reduce collector interest. Instead, handle the coin carefully by its edges, examine it under good lighting, and compare it with reliable examples. Look closely at the date. Inspect the D mint mark. Study the lettering. Check the rim. Turn the coin over and inspect the Lincoln Memorial. If you notice something that appears genuinely unusual, photograph it clearly and consider seeking an opinion from a knowledgeable numismatist or professional authentication service. The tiny details matter. One reason collectors love coins from this period is that every piece is like a small historical artifact. The 1970D penny was produced during an era of major change in the United States. It traveled through the hands of people who had no idea that decades later someone might study its surfaces under magnification. It could have bought a piece of candy, sat at the bottom of a purse, fallen behind furniture, or been placed inside a child's piggy bank. Its journey may have lasted only seconds from one owner to another, or it may have remained untouched for years. Every surviving coin has its own silent history. And that history becomes even more exciting when the coin possesses something unusual. Perhaps the most fascinating thing about rare coins is that the discovery often begins with something incredibly small. A collector notices a letter that appears different. A line seems out of place. The strike looks unusual. The coin weighs differently than expected. Suddenly, a simple object becomes a mystery. The collector researches, compares photographs, checks references, and asks experts. Sometimes the answer is disappointing, the coin is ordinary or damaged. But occasionally, the answer opens a door into a much bigger world of varieties, errors, grading, and collector demand. That possibility is why people keep searching through jars of change. And remember, this journey is far from over. After the 1970D penny, another Lincoln cent is waiting, and its story comes from a different decade with its own clues, mysteries, and collector interest. Do not leave yet, because the next coin may make you look at old pocket change in a completely different way. I will not reveal its dramatic value here, but I will tell you this: if you have ever ignored a jar of old pennies, you may want to rethink that decision. Somewhere, an overlooked coin could be waiting for someone curious enough to examine it properly. But before we move on, let's return one final time to the 1970D Lincoln penny. The real value of this coin is not found in a headline alone. It is found in the story behind the individual specimen. Is it ordinary? Is it exceptionally preserved? Does it have a genuine mint error? Is there a recognized variety? Has it survived decades with original surfaces and strong detail? These questions determine whether the coin is simply old change or something collectors may seriously want to study. Most people would spend it without realizing its potential significance. Most people would never look twice. But you now know better. You know to inspect the date, the mint mark, the strike, the lettering, and the overall condition. You know not to confuse damage with a genuine error. You know not to clean a suspicious coin. And you know that sensational multi-million-dollar claims should always be separated from verified market reality. That knowledge gives you something powerful, the ability to look at ordinary change with extraordinary curiosity. So the next time a penny lands in your hand, do not dismiss it immediately. Turn it over. Study it. Ask questions. Maybe it is only worth 1 cent. Maybe it is worth a little more because of condition. Or maybe there is something about it that deserves professional attention. The odds of finding a spectacular rarity may be small, but history has always rewarded the people who look closely. And that is why this tiny 1970 Lincoln penny remains so interesting. It reminds us that a fortune does not always arrive in a treasure chest. Sometimes, it arrives disguised as pocket change. And if you thought this coin was fascinating, the next penny is waiting just ahead, another small piece of American history, another mystery hidden in plain sight, and another reason to keep watching until the very end. Because the next coin could make this search even more unbelievable. Next, 1979 Lincoln penny. Most people ignore this coin, but the lucky few who discover something truly unusual may realize that a tiny piece of pocket change can carry a story far bigger than its 1 cent face value. Imagine opening an old jar that has not been touched for decades, hearing hundreds of coins move against the glass, and seeing a 1979 penny with a small D mint mark staring back at you. You might think it is ordinary, you might toss it aside, and you might never know why collectors sometimes examine coins from this era so carefully. Yet sensational rare coin stories have attached a claimed value as high as $18 million to an extraordinary 1979 Lincoln penny, a number that sounds almost impossible for such a small coin. But the real mystery is not whether every 1979 penny is worth millions. It absolutely is not. The real mystery is whether a particular coin has a rare characteristic, remarkable condition, or genuine minting anomaly that makes collectors stop and pay attention. Stay with me, because this coin takes us deeper into the treasure hunt, and before our journey ends, one final Lincoln penny is waiting in the shadows, a coin whose story will become the grand finale of everything we have explored. The 1979 Lincoln penny was struck at the Denver Mint, identified by the small d beneath the date, and like countless other pennies produced for circulation, it entered a world where most people saw it as nothing more than 1 cent. It could have passed through grocery stores, gas stations, schools, banks, and vending machines. A child may have dropped it into a piggy bank. Someone may have carried it for years in a pocket. It may have disappeared beneath the seat of a car, been trapped inside a couch, or rested quietly in a forgotten coin collection. Decades passed, and now that same tiny object can become part of a modern treasure hunt. That is what makes coin collecting so fascinating. The coin itself does not need to change for our understanding of it to change. Once someone begins looking closely, an ordinary object can suddenly become a historical artifact, a collectible, or a mystery waiting to be solved. The first thing to understand about the 1979 Lincoln penny is that the date and mint mark alone do not automatically make it rare. Large numbers of Lincoln cents were produced, and many ordinary examples remain available to collectors. So if you find one, do not immediately assume you have discovered a fortune. Instead, begin with curiosity. Look at the coin carefully. Is the date clear? Is the D mint mark normal? Does the strike look sharp? Are the surfaces heavily worn, or has the coin survived in unusually strong condition? Does the lettering appear normal? Are there unusual marks that might have formed during production? These questions are much more valuable than simply believing a dramatic online price claim. Condition is one of the biggest factors collectors consider. A penny that circulated for years may show dark surfaces, scratches, dents, flattened details, and other signs of use. But imagine finding a 1979 penny that appears almost untouched. Lincoln's portrait remains sharp. The lettering is crisp. The surfaces still show attractive original characteristics. The reverse design is clearly defined. Suddenly, the coin may attract more attention than a heavily worn example. High-quality preservation can be difficult to find after decades of circulation, because most coins were never intended to become collectibles. They were made to be spent. That means an unusually well-preserved coin can offer collectors a glimpse of how the piece looked when it first left the mint. But condition is only the beginning. Now we enter the world of errors and unusual characteristics. During the minting process, small variations can occur. A die can develop cracks. A coin can be struck improperly. A planchet can be affected before striking. Machinery can create unexpected results. Some genuine mint errors can produce coins with dramatic appearances, while others are subtle enough that only experienced collectors notice them. Imagine examining a 1979 D penny and seeing a design that appears shifted slightly from where it should be. Imagine lettering with unusual doubling. Imagine a raised line caused by a die crack. Imagine an off-center strike that immediately catches the eye. Each possibility creates a different question, and each question requires investigation. But once again, the most important rule is simple: damage is not the same as a mint error. A coin can be bent after leaving the mint. It can be scratched, scraped, heated, chemically altered, or crushed. Those changes may make the coin look dramatic, but they do not automatically create numismatic value. Genuine errors must be identified through evidence connected to the minting process. That is why collectors often rely on magnification, comparison with known examples, reference guides, experienced numismatists, and professional authentication. Now imagine a collector receiving an old family coin collection. There are envelopes filled with pennies, and many are labeled only by decade. The collector begins sorting through them one by one. Most are common. Then a 1979 D penny appears that looks different. It is placed under a light. The surface catches the eye. The collector turns it over. Something about the strike seems unusual. The heart begins to race. Could this be important? The temptation is to search the internet and immediately compare it with giant value claims. But the smart collector takes a slower path. They document the coin. They weigh it if appropriate. They inspect both sides. They avoid cleaning it. They compare the suspected feature with trusted references. That patience separates a serious discovery from wishful thinking. And sometimes, patience leads to an answer that is far more exciting than a quick guess. The claimed $18 million figure surrounding an extraordinary 1979 D penny should be treated as a sensational headline, not as a guarantee. The real market value of any individual coin depends on what it actually is, whether its unusual feature is genuine, its condition, its rarity, and collector demand. Extraordinary values require extraordinary evidence. Still, the possibility of discovering an unusual coin is real enough to make the search worthwhile. You do not need to believe that every penny is a hidden fortune to enjoy coin hunting. You only need to understand that some coins deserve a closer look. And if you are watching right now with a jar of old pennies nearby, this is the perfect moment to pause the video and check. Search for the date. Look for the D, examine the surfaces. Compare the coin with others from your collection. Does one look noticeably different? Do not rush to spend it. Do not rush to clean it. Curiosity costs nothing, but a careless decision can destroy information that may be important to collectors. This could be sitting unnoticed in your house right now. It could be mixed with ordinary change. It could be hidden in a box inherited from a parent or grandparent. Most people would spend it without realizing that unusual characteristics deserve investigation. And that brings us closer to the final coin in this series. We have already searched through one decade and now entered another, but the next Lincoln penny will take this story in a new direction. I will not reveal its value yet, because the suspense belongs to the final discovery. What I can tell you is that its mint mark, its era, and the kinds of details collectors search for will make the final chapter worth waiting for. So keep watching. The grand finale is coming. But before we leave the 1979 D Lincoln penny behind, remember what this coin teaches us. A penny is never interesting simply because someone gives it a giant number online. It becomes interesting when there is evidence. Evidence of rarity. Evidence of an authentic error. Evidence of exceptional preservation. Evidence of a recognized variety. The most successful coin hunters are not the people who believe every unusual coin is worth millions, they are the people who learn how to tell the difference between ordinary change, post-mint damage, and a genuine collectible. That knowledge can transform the way you look at every coin. A pile of pennies becomes a collection of dates. Dates become historical periods. Mint marks become clues. Surface details become questions. Questions lead to research, and research leads to understanding. That is the real treasure hidden inside coin collecting. So the next time you see a 1979 D Lincoln penny, do not simply ask, how much is it worth? Ask something better, what makes this particular coin different? That question could lead you toward an ordinary answer, but sometimes the journey itself is exciting. And once in a while, a closer examination reveals something nobody else noticed. Perhaps the coin is beautifully preserved. Perhaps it has an unusual die characteristic. Perhaps it shows a genuine error. Or perhaps it simply teaches you more about the history of American coinage. Either way, you win something, knowledge. And now, the moment is getting closer. One final Lincoln penny remains. The last coin will bring this journey to its dramatic conclusion, and its story will remind us once again that the smallest piece of change can sometimes hold the biggest mystery. So do not go anywhere. Keep your coin jar nearby, keep your magnifying glass ready, and prepare for the final chapter, because if you thought the 1970D and 1979D Lincoln pennies were fascinating, the next coin may make you look at every old penny in your collection with completely new eyes. And if you thought this one was valuable, the final coin is even more unbelievable. Next, 1972's Lincoln penny. Imagine reaching into an old collection and pulling out a tiny coin that has been sitting quietly for decades, untouched, unnoticed, and completely underestimated. It is not gold, it is not silver, but under the right circumstances, an extraordinary example could become far more valuable than anyone holding it would ever imagine. The coin is the 1972's Lincoln penny, and sensational rare coin stories have attached a claimed value reaching as high as $27 million to an exceptional example. That number sounds unbelievable, and it should never be taken to mean that every 1972's penny is worth millions, but it creates one powerful question: what could make one tiny cent so different from millions of others? Now we have reached the grand finale of our journey, and this final coin brings together everything we have learned so far about mint marks, condition, errors, rarity, authentication, and the incredible possibility that history can hide something extraordinary inside the smallest pieces of everyday change. The 1972's Lincoln penny was produced at the San Francisco Mint, identified by the small S mint mark beneath the date. That single letter may look insignificant, but to collectors it is an important clue. Mint marks help identify where a coin was made, and different mints can produce coins with their own characteristics, quantities, and collectible varieties. The 1972's cent entered circulation during an era when the Lincoln Memorial reverse was already familiar to Americans across the country. For the average person, a penny was simply a penny. It was used to make purchases, handed over as change, saved by children, and tossed into jars. Nobody standing at a cash register in 1972 could possibly know where that particular coin would travel over the next 5 decades. Maybe it entered the pocket of a student. Maybe it was carried inside a purse. Maybe it disappeared beneath a car seat. Maybe someone placed it into a collection and forgot about it. Decades later, it could emerge again, and suddenly that ordinary coin becomes part of a treasure hunt. This is why coin collecting can feel like traveling through time. Every old coin survived a journey, and every unusual coin carries a mystery. The first thing you should understand about the 1972's Lincoln penny is that the date and S mint mark alone do not guarantee a fortune. Many examples exist, and ordinary circulated pieces can be common. The true excitement begins when a particular specimen shows something that separates it from the rest. Perhaps the coin is preserved in exceptional condition. Perhaps the strike is unusually sharp. Perhaps there is a genuine mint error. Perhaps a die variety creates an unusual design feature. Or perhaps the coin has another characteristic that deserves expert examination. That is the difference between chasing a headline and becoming a real coin hunter. A headline tells you that a coin could be valuable. Knowledge tells you why. Imagine placing a 1972 penny beneath a magnifying glass for the first time. Lincoln's portrait comes into sharper focus. The letters become larger. The tiny S mint mark is easier to inspect. You begin looking at the date, the motto, the rim, and the reverse. Suddenly, details you would never notice with the naked eye become visible. Is there unusual doubling? Is there a raised line caused by a die crack? Is the strike shifted off-center? Is part of the design missing because of a production issue? These are the kinds of questions collectors ask. And every answer can lead to another layer of the mystery. Genuine mint errors can occur during different stages of production. A planchet may have a problem before it is struck. A die may become damaged after repeated use. The coin may not be positioned correctly during striking. In unusual circumstances, the result can be a piece that looks dramatically different from an ordinary example. An off-center strike can shift the design away from its normal position. A clipped planchet can leave part of the coin missing because of an issue during blank preparation. A die crack can create raised lines on the finished coin. Other unusual production characteristics may also appear. But this is where collectors must be extremely careful. A damaged coin is not automatically a rare coin. Post-mint scratches, dents, corrosion, chemical damage, and intentional alterations can create strange appearances that have nothing to do with the mint. The difference can be difficult for beginners to recognize. That is why professional authentication and expert knowledge can be so important. Now imagine the most exciting scenario. You are sorting through an inherited collection. There are envelopes filled with coins, perhaps organized by decade, perhaps completely mixed together. You begin with the pennies. One by one, you inspect them. Then you find a 1972 South Lincoln Center. You almost put it into the ordinary pile, but something makes you stop. The surface looks unusual. The strike appears different. You turn the coin toward the light. The details become clearer. Your imagination starts racing. Could this be a valuable variety? Could it be a genuine error? Could this tiny piece of metal have a story nobody has discovered yet? This is the moment that creates the thrill of numismatics. You do not yet know the answer, but you know the coin deserves attention. And that attention could be the beginning of an incredible investigation. The claimed $27 million figure surrounding an extraordinary 1972 Lincoln penny represents the type of sensational valuation that captures everyone's imagination. But responsible collectors understand that such a number must be separated from the value of ordinary examples. A coin does not become worth millions simply because it has the same year and mint mark. Extraordinary value requires extraordinary rarity, strong demand, convincing evidence, authentication, and a real reason for collectors to compete for the coin. If someone tells you that every 1972 penny is a multi-million-dollar treasure, be skeptical. But if someone tells you to inspect your coins carefully for genuine varieties, errors, and exceptional preservation, that advice can lead to a much more meaningful discovery. Condition is another major piece of the puzzle. Think about how difficult it is for a coin to survive 50 years without serious wear. Most pennies are dropped, rubbed against other coins, exposed to moisture, and handled repeatedly. Their surfaces change. Their details become softer. Their original appearance slowly disappears. But occasionally, a coin survives in remarkably strong condition. It may have been placed into a collection shortly after it was issued. It may have been stored carefully in an envelope or holder. It may have remained untouched for decades. When collectors find a coin with exceptional original surfaces and sharp details, they can see a piece of history that looks much closer to the way it appeared when it first left the mint. That kind of preservation can attract attention, especially when combined with another rare characteristic. If you ever discover a 1972's Lincoln penny that seems unusual, remember the golden rule: do not clean it. Do not polish it. Do not scrub away discoloration. Do not use chemicals to make it shine. A cleaned coin can lose important surface characteristics and collector appeal. Handle it carefully by the edges. Place it in a proper holder if available. Take clear photographs of both sides. Examine the date and mint mark under magnification. Compare the suspected feature with reliable references. And if the characteristic appears genuinely unusual, seek help from a qualified numismatist or professional grading and authentication service. One small decision can protect information that might otherwise be lost forever. This final coin also teaches us something deeper about the world of rare coins. The true treasure is not simply the dream of becoming rich. The true treasure is learning how to see. Most people see a penny and see 1 cent. A collector sees history, design, metal composition, production methods, condition, mint marks, and potential varieties. A small object becomes a mystery. A mystery becomes research. Research becomes knowledge. And knowledge creates the possibility of recognizing something extraordinary when everyone else walks past it. Think back to the beginning of this journey. We started with the 1970 Lincoln penny, a coin that reminded us to inspect the smallest details. Then came the 1979 Lincoln penny, showing us how condition and unusual characteristics can change the conversation. Now the 1972's Lincoln penny brings the story to its final and most dramatic conclusion. 3 coins. 3 different years. 3 different clues. Yet all of them teach the same lesson: never underestimate what you have until you examine it properly. A coin jar could contain nothing but ordinary change. An inherited collection could hold only common pieces. But occasionally, a single coin may have an unusual feature that nobody recognized. That possibility is what keeps collectors searching through rolls, jars, estate collections, and old boxes. The odds of discovering an extraordinary rarity may be small, but the next great discovery has to be found by someone. Why not the person who decides to look carefully? Maybe that person is you. So tonight, if you have a container full of old pennies, do not rush through it. Take your time. Sort by date. Check mint marks. Look for unusual characteristics. Compare coins with one another. Learn what genuine errors look like. Ask questions. Research carefully. And remember that excitement should always be balanced with evidence. Not every unusual coin is rare. Not every rare-looking coin is valuable. But every coin can teach you something. That is what makes this hobby so powerful. The 1972's Lincoln penny may have started as one tiny piece of everyday currency, but today it represents something much larger: curiosity, history, mystery, and the possibility that an overlooked object can become the center of an incredible story. The claimed $27 million value may create the headline, but the search for truth creates the adventure. Somewhere, perhaps in an old drawer, a forgotten jar, or a collection passed down through generations, a 1972's penny could be waiting for someone to notice a detail that everyone else missed. Most people would spend it without realizing its potential significance. Most people would never examine the tiny S beneath the date. Most people would never question whether the unusual mark on the surface came from the mint or from years of damage. But now you know what to do. Look closely. Protect the coin. Learn the difference between an error and damage. Verify extraordinary claims. And never let excitement replace evidence. Because the most dramatic coin discoveries are not created by guessing, they are created by careful observation. We began with pocket change and ended with a mystery that could send any collector searching through every old penny they own. That is the power of 1 cent. It can carry history. It can carry memories. It can travel across generations. And under extraordinary circumstances, it can become far more interesting than anyone imagined. So before you spend your next penny, stop for a moment. Turn it over. Check the date. Check the mint mark. Look at the details. Ask yourself what story that tiny coin has carried through time. You may find nothing unusual. Or you may discover a clue that sends you on your own numismatic adventure. Either way, one thing is certain: the greatest treasure hunter is not the person who expects every coin to be a fortune. It is the person curious enough to look twice. And sometimes, that second look is where the real story begins.